Michael Mayo has already run for the same seat, the 3rd district, and he was our most successful candidate last time around in the Peace Slate for the House of Representatives.
I'm a math teacher here in Portland, and I'm hoping to be nominated today so that I can get the 300 signatures that I need to get onto the voters pamphlet. I am asking this party's nomination so that I can run against a corporate Democrat on a peace slate.
By nominating early, he can begin the process of signature gathering for a statement in the voters pamphlet, which would save us with $5,000.
Which I haven't got.
If the Constitution is to be preserved, if the rule of law is to survive, if the people of the United States are to see justice done, then there must be accountability for the massive crimes against the rule of law, against the United Nations Charter, and against humanity, of which the members of the last administration of the government of the United States are surely guilty. But promising reform and transparency and delivering the same old corrupt politics in defense of corporate issues, of corporate interests during the last 40 years is one thing. Conducting an aggressive war against the government and people of a country that is no threat to the United States is another, and considerably worse. As the Nuremberg Tribunal held 60 years ago, launching an aggressive war is the supreme crime. It was the primary reason for the founding of the United Nations. It is the reason for the founding of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, now railroaded by the United States into the occupation of Afghanistan. And it is about that war of aggression against Afghanistan that President Obama is repeatedly and publicly lying. I consider it my duty, the duty of my party, and the duty of all people of goodwill to repudiate exactly those lies on which the war in Afghanistan has been and continues to be based. In January of the year just past, President Obama flew to Cairo, Egypt, to deliver an address to the Muslims of the world. He had several issues to confront, he said, and the first specific was the war in Afghanistan. The situation in Afghanistan demonstrates America's goals and our need to work together. Over 7 years ago, the United States pursued Al-Qaeda and the Taliban with broad international support. We did not go by choice, we went because of necessity. And in December of last year, hardly a month ago, President Obama accepted the award of the Nobel Peace Prize from the Parliament of the country of Norway. At that time he announced, right after acknowledging receipt of the prize, perhaps the most profound issue surrounding my receipt of this prize is the fact that I am Commander-in-Chief of a nation in the midst of 2 wars. One of these wars is winding down. The other is a conflict that America did not seek. One in which we are joined by 43 other countries, including Norway, in an effort to defend ourselves and all nations from further attacks. That is the lie. We went to war because of necessity. We did not seek war. We are defending ourselves in Afghanistan. That is the line of the president. That is the line of the single prominent political party in this country, Republican and Democrat alike, the corporate political party, the war party. Look instead, to borrow the words of Noam Chomsky, at the historical record. The attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were followed by some 2 months of preparation for war. During that time, the government of Afghanistan offered to extradite Osama bin Laden to a jurisdiction of our choice, of the choice of the government of the United States. This was reported at the time by Alan Pizzi on CBS News on the 25th of September, 2001. The Afghan-American retained by the United States as intermediary between the U.S. and the Taliban government of Afghanistan was the source of that news item. 3 years after the invasion, after having provided his testimony on the efforts of the Taliban to deliver bin Laden to the U.S. as an act of international cooperation, both to the 9/11 Commission and to the lawyers for the 9/11 families, this man, Kabir Mahabat, detailed his effort for the writers Alexander Cockburn and Jeffrey St. Clair on the 1st of November 2004 issue of the website Counterpunch. Mahabat, a member of the clan of the last king of Afghanistan, went to college in the United States and returned to his native land to serve as foreign policy advisor to the Mujahideen during the 1980s, when they were fighting the armed forces of the Soviet Union and were supported by the covert services of the United States. After the defeat of the Russians, he returned to the U.S. and became a U.S. citizen, but retained close personal relations with the winners of the Afghan Civil War, the Taliban. By 1999, Mahabat says, the Taliban had concluded that the attacks by al-Qaeda from their training camps in Afghanistan had made bin Laden, quote, just a damn liability, unquote. They asked Mahabat to arrange a meeting with officials of the European Union, at which a means could be arrived at to hand over bin Laden to custody of European law officers. That meeting took place in August 2000. On the morning of 12th October 2000, Mahabat was telephoned by the U.S. State Department and asked to serve as intermediary to the Taliban in the wake, that day, of the suicide attack on the U.S. ship Cole in Yemeni waters. He was retained from November of 2000 until late September 2001. He has provided documentation of having been paid $115,000 for his services to the United States State Department. On 2nd November 2000, Mahabat convened a face-to-face meeting in Frankfurt, Germany, between representatives of the Taliban government and those of the government of the United States. That is, a few days before George Bush was elected. At that meeting, the Taliban offered, in Mahabat's words, the unconditional surrender of Osama bin Laden to the United States. He could be sent to the Europeans, as had been suggested 3 months before, or made available as a target of U.S. cruise missiles. To display their seriousness, the Taliban, shortly after the Frankfurt meeting, moved bin Laden and his retinue and placed them under house arrest on a site 30 miles from Kabul. Following his instructions from the State Department, Mahabat went to Pakistan to receive an answer to the Taliban. Mahabat was advised to tell the Taliban that the U.S. accepted the offer, but that it would be up to the incoming Bush administration to implement it. The National Security Council of the new administration notified Mahabat of his retention as liaison to the Taliban government in the middle of November. Shortly after that, he was provided with a letter to the Taliban asking for a delay until February 2001 for the White House to make its decision on which way to proceed. This letter was the first of a series. Incompetence, inattention, or intention may variously be regarded as the cause of the repeated delays. They lasted for more than 6 months. In any case, a few days after the disaster of the destructive attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon in September 2001, Mahabat arranged a meeting between Taliban officials and U.S. officials in Quetta, Pakistan. The two sides agreed to the immediate arrest and delivery of bin Laden to the United States, the extradition of all foreign al-Qaeda members back to their home countries, and the closing of all al-Qaeda bases in Afghanistan. In other words, a reasonable offer by the government of Afghanistan to the government of the United States. There was no follow-up by the government of the United States. When, in October, after the CBS broadcast of a carefully worded report of the Taliban offer, the Taliban, through Mahabat, repeated their willingness to send bin Laden to the U.S. and close all al-Qaeda camps. And they were advised, in the words of the U.S. State Department official who spoke to Mahabat, the train has moved. The bombing of Afghanistan began a few days later. The train has moved. It has left the station. As much as Muhammad's impeccable documentation, and as much as his being called to testify to the 9/11 Commission contribute to his credibility, that phrase rings true. That was the Bush administration's way of expressing itself.